So when it comes to what we should actually be eating, obviously this is a source of much confusion on social media. Let's maybe a good sort of framework is to lead with macronutrients, where everybody's talking about protein these days, which I think is a good thing. I mean, based on my appraisal of the literature, my interaction with other experts, and my own, N of one anecdotal experience, I feel better when I consume more protein. It keeps my hunger in check. Mm-hmm. Do you think that this paradigm of prioritizing protein is a smart one?
I personally think protein is a good thing to prioritize for most people. I also think what is probably important is to just acknowledge that there's all this variety. And so if somebody does well on a lower, moderate protein diet, more power to them, right? I think what you're talking about, though, is what are most people going to benefit from. And if you look at the macronutrients, some people do well with lower carb. Some people do well with higher carb. Same with fat. Some people do better with more fat. Some people do better with less fat. I don't think you can really argue that people should be having really low protein. For one thing, like you said, it's a satiety thing. We eat to our protein the minimum protein needs, right? You're going to be hungry if you don't get enough protein. There's just no question about that. And so in terms of trying to make sure you can feel full, which is one of the biggest challenges in the US, right? You said it, almost half of the population is expected to be obese. We have about 2/3, almost about 3/4 of the population now that is overweight or obese. And so there's obviously a big challenge in being able to stop eating when we've met all of our energy needs, all our calorie requirements. I think protein, from my view of the literature too, we're probably preaching to the choir here. Like, you're going to have a hard time eating too much protein. I don't think there's a lot of risk from eating a lot of protein. I think that probably in some patients, right, if you have kidney disease or something, you have to worry about that. But for most people, eating enough protein is going to help regulate how much you eat, how full do you feel. If you think about your lean mass, muscle mass, if you think about performance for athletes, if you think about older adults, you start to have much greater risk of sarcopenia, muscle loss, of falls, of injuries, broken bones. And so protein, from my perspective, for those who want to prioritize protein, I think it's a really safe way to sort of alter the diet from a macronutrient lens and have mostly positive benefits from that.
Yeah. Circling back to ultra-processed foods, I mean, one of the big problems is, I guess the term is greenwashing, marketing an ultra-processed food as healthful when it often is anything but. But I'm curious if you saw that study that came out recently where they took ultra-processed foods that were enriched with protein, and they found that they were less likely to be overconsumed, or they were overconsumed to a smaller degree. Yeah. Right. Which is, it's an important nuance, because ultra-processed foods were still prone to overconsumption. But, protein washing is something that now, you walk through the aisles of your average supermarket, almost every ultra-processed food is like high protein, and a lot of that is BS, in fact, when you look at the nutrition facts label. So that's problematic. But in general, would you say that the enrichment of ultra-processed foods with protein is maybe in a way a net positive?
I think it is. I think you're exactly right that it's better than the alternative ultra-processed food. If you have the combination of the fat and the starch or sugar, so the carbohydrate and the fat, you don't actually see a lot of foods in nature other than breast milk that is high in both. And so we have created these foods to be high in both, and that's super palatable, right? Our bodies aren't used to tasting that combination, right? And so yes, adding protein, I think, to whether that's in the the protein bar, having high protein, whether that's maybe products that wouldn't typically have them, like for example, let's say like an oat milk or some sort of plant milk that is low in protein, I would be much more in favor of having protein powder added to that product. I think that it's going to, for one thing, it's probably going to make it a little bit more satiating. So the overconsumption is going to be reduced a little bit because you'll meet your protein needs sooner. And then for the other thing, there probably are, certain populations like vegans who are at risk of actually not getting enough protein just to meet their essential amino acid requirements. And so I think if we can, and this is actually the argument of a lot of the folks on the low carb side, they say, look, ultra processing itself is not the problem as much. It's really about ultra processed carbohydrates. Those are what are the most problematic foods if you look at them. And so I think there is some truth to that. Your sort of summary of that study, I think, is right. Like, yes, you're still going to overconsume, but not as much.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely, of the ultra processed foods that I tend to buy, they're all protein enriched. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with like Quest protein chips. Mm-mm. Oh my God, whoever formulated those needs to win a Nobel Prize or something.
Are you nominating them?
I'm hereby nominating them. They're incredible. And no affiliation with Quest, but they're a great snack to have at the end of the day, to jack up my protein a little further. And the protein to calorie ratio is amazing. And so, yeah, it's definitely a trend that I'm in support of.
Yeah. I mean, I probably had today from breakfast and lunch about 120 grams of protein. So
wow, that's pretty good.
I do prioritize protein. Now, I'm not like going around saying, you got to have more protein. go to like, you have 200 grams of protein a day. But for me personally, I feel better when I have a good amount of protein. And also, if we haven't really got into this, but when we're talking about vegan, carnivore, if I do too much on the plant-based side and I don't have meat, I start to feel like I'm lacking. And I don't know, like could be related to these compounds like the creatine or the taurine or something. There's also this term meat factor, which is like, it's sort of this a little bit mysterious thing that meat can do that for some people it meets their needs in a different way than something else. And so like for me, if I have a meal or two in the day that is just beans or legumes or just tofu or something, I start kind of craving to have some meat. And I think there's something to that where actually the quality of the protein and all of the compounds within those foods themselves are probably contributing something as well.
Yeah, I mean, you're preaching to the choir here. I think that meat is a health food. I mean, it's to be fair, it's a spectrum, but I think that we could even use the qualifier lean. But I think that unprocessed animal source foods or minimally processed animal source foods are, more often going to be beneficial to health than not.
Yeah, I agree.
Hey, if you liked that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.